And it's the Barry Foster Show from the beautiful Ridge Floor Studios in downtown Avon Park, the city of charm. Remember, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, you can just put them on the comments below here. We'll try to get those kinds of things. We have some special guests coming up next week, along with John and myself. We're going to have some racing guests, some entertainment guests, and a whole lot more. So we really, really appreciate you tuning in, and we really appreciate those who've been subscribing. We're over 100 subscribers. Now we're looking for 250, which will be a quarter of the way to 1,000, which is our next goal. So on the phones from beautiful Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, we have John Larsen. Good morning, John. How you doing, my
Hey,
friend?
good morning. How are we doing today?
We're doing okay. It's a little warm up here. How is it in beautiful Pennsylvania?
Well, let's say last night it got into the high 50s and whatnot. Right this morning, the sun is finally out, believe it or not, after about 3 days of rain. Okay, the sun has finally peeked through this morning, intermittent amongst the clouds. And the temperature right now is in the very low 60s, but I think it's supposed to edge its way closer to 70 sometime this afternoon. But my daughter and I are headed out later this afternoon, not too late, but later this afternoon to go to races. So down near Pittsburgh. So we'll see how that goes.
What's our track of the evening tonight?
Lernerville Speedway. It's in a little town called Sarver, PA, which is in part of Butler County and not that far from Pittsburgh.
Now this is a dirt track. Have you gone up
Oh
on
yeah.
their social media to see if they're going to be having racing tonight?
Oh yeah. They've got something like what they call speed weeks going on for. I think it started last night, tonight, and tomorrow night. All things considered with the weather, and it's a big deal. They've got a lot of different classes that they're running, and this is a pretty good track. I've been there before, but it's a very nice track and whatnot. So hopefully, Mother Nature and the good Lord cooperates and gives us some decent weather.
Now you've been driving around. First of all, how are the crops looking with all this rain?
Not good. I drove by this morning. I went over, like I told you earlier. I took a quick run over to Ohio. We're about 15, 16 miles from Ohio. And the reason is that gas over there this morning was 306. Here, where my daughter lives in Pennsylvania, 365. So just about everybody in this locale make the trek over to Ohio because you're talking about, you know, 50 cents or so a gallon cheaper, which is considerably quite a bit.
Well, that's
And,
mostly because of taxes, though.
oh yeah, oh state taxes. Yeah, Pennsylvania has the highest state taxes on gas next to California and whatnot. It's I don't know. It's just it's always been that way, and it'll continue to be that way. And they never figure out a way not to do that to punish the people with higher gas prices, because they just don't. I don't know why. Whether they don't operate their financials very well, what their issues are, what their reasons are. I know most of the blue states are high tax states, and Pennsylvania is one of them. Pennsylvania, New York, Illinois, California, of course. I mean, they're all high cost states on top of the fact that they're very, in my opinion, very poorly run.
So now, have you been able to measure the populace? Are you seeing a lot of Trump signs? What are you seeing? Anything political showing up as you drive around?
I've seen still people have Trump signs in their yards. I've not seen any other sign for any other politician, unless it's some local guy running for, dog catcher or judge or whatever. But other than that, the only political signs I've seen on the national level have been Trump signs. Yes.
Have there
And
been
that
any?
was true. That was true in Ohio and Pennsylvania and just about everywhere else that I've been.
Now there was a anti-Trump demonstration here last week. Have you seen any pro-Trump demonstrations or pro-Trump activity driving around in
Uh,
Ohio and
one, I
Pennsylvania?
saw one pro-Trump. I saw one pro-Trump, if you will, a rally, and it happened to be on what day was it? Was the whatever day it was and whatnot. But there was one pro rally for Trump, and that was I think that was in that definitely I think that was in Ohio, and they had probably I want to say maybe between 30 and 40 people there and whatnot. And then other than that, like I told you the other day, that one big No Kings rally that I saw in Wauseon, Ohio, which was probably about 75 or 80 people and whatnot. And I saw some pictures again this morning, And that No Kings rally thing got a lot of play across the country. Now, I believe that most of those people that were doing that were being paid to do that. So, if you offer people money to do things, carry signs, shoot and holler and whatever, hoot and holler, they'll do it and so on. But I really believe that most of those people were paid for and paid agitators, if you will, and so on. So the thing I got a kick out of was yesterday. I heard that Governor DeSantis came out again and said, and I know they passed this law that if you're a protester in the middle of the street and you try and block traffic, you have every right to run over the protesters and whatnot because they cannot stop and impinge you on a right of way. And but I did also see that same thing took place in California with all the riots they've got out there, and they arrest the people. The people that if a protester, you're supposed to just, I guess, sit there, let them beat on your car, let them beat on you, and but if you do anything to them, then you're the one that's going to get arrested.
Yeah, well, they have been crowing about the fact that these protests, these No Kings protests, have been largely uh, peaceful. That there haven't been any blocking of streets or setting buildings on fire, anything like that. And they're claiming 5 million people participated in these things across the country. There was a fairly large demonstration here in Highlands County while you were gone. We counted about 60 people that were there. Uh, but there was nobody that we saw nobody in the streets trying to block traffic or cause any issues.
Well, I think they've got the word from the governor. Don't do that because you're going to, if people take my advice and they're going to run you over, it's like Grady Judd said, when you got a bad guy, you keep shooting. Okay. So Florida is pretty much the no nonsense state when it comes to bad activity. Okay. And that's the way it should be all across the country. It's unfortunate that these blue state governors and blue state, mayors and that are just absolutely insane when it comes to, coddling to the protesters and coddling to the rioting and the destruction that these people are doing, like Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom out in California. It's just absolutely pathetic what they've allowed to happen out there. And yet they sit there and lie through their teeth when they say that it's almost all a peaceful protest. No, it's not. My eyes do not deceive me.
Did you see anything in Pennsylvania of that or Ohio while you were up there?
Only the ones I mentioned earlier, but other than that, I've not seen since that No King's Day. I mean, everything just seems, other than California, which continues to be absolutely insane. But other than that, it looks to me like all of that, once that so-called No King's Day happened, that everything just kind of disappeared after that.
Okay, well, I guess the big story is what's been happening in Iran and Israel's efforts to kind of take out the missile launchers. Things seemed since the last we talked, things seemed to have died down. And although Donald Trump said he wasn't in the mood to negotiate, it from the outside look at things, it looks like there may be some new negotiations going on there.
Well, I think it goes back and forth. Now, of course, yesterday, I guess it was, he made his announcement that he's going to give another 2 weeks to see if the Ayatollah, if you will capitulate and say, okay, look, I'm going to allow the destruction of my nuclear facilities or whatever. Doubtful that he's going to do that because that's all he's got. That's his really right now. That's about his only weapon that he's got left because their air force has been totally decimated and a lot of their facilities with ammunitions and rocket launcher locations and so on and so forth have pretty much been obliterated by the Israeli Air Force and the rockets. However, I have seen a lot of the films where the rockets have hit Israel and they've done a lot of damage in Israel, a lot.
So we talked to Tom Trento while you were uh,
Yes,
while you were
yes.
gone, and let's start here. He said that there had been three that there are three possibilities. One is the royal family, and I guess the Shah's son, the prince, has sent an open letter to the people of Iran that they would come back and they could put the royal family back in.
Hmm.
And Trento didn't seem to think that there was much much chance of that happening. They don't like the Ayatollah, and apparently the word is that they are not going to kill the Ayatollah, because if they kill the Ayatollah, then they will go back to like medieval country, and it will take decades for them to recover, and that'll throw the world's economy, the oil economy, into a tailspin. But there is a third group, and I cannot remember the name of it, who do not like the Ayatollah and would take over. And apparently, they have been the people who've been cooperating with Egypt, or with Israel, to, like, they're the ones that helped get the uh, get the pagers out when they had the all the pagers that blew up. They were able to
Mhm.
facilitate getting all the leaders together. So when Israelis made their big strike, they were able to take out the leadership. And he thinks that they may be the group, this kind of moderate group, that would come in and take that over.
Well, I think the good thing I hope is that, and I believe when Trump says that he would not be involved, we do not need to get into another 20-year Afghanistan where we try to do nation building. If we do away, and again, I think the absolute necessity, we have to eliminate the nuke facility. We have to, one way or the other, it's got to happen. But beyond that, we cannot get into trying to establish a nation of Iran again. That's got to be left up to the people of Iran as to what way they want to go.
Yeah, and but the thing is, John, that they don't have a democracy. They don't have a constitutional republic like we have. I mean, I don't know how much that these people are interested in, how well they are to take care of that kind of thing. I think that anti this anti Muslim radical group can come in and say, "Look, you can still be Muslims. Everything will be fine, but we'll run the country." And I think the word has also gone out to the Israelis from Donald Trump, that they can take out all the military bases they want to, but leave the oil and gas production the way it is, so that they'll continue to. I think oil, last I heard, was $80 a barrel. Excuse me, $80 a barrel. So it'll keep the world energy prices at current market prices.
Well, I think, yeah, that's the other thing. And I believe the other thing that Trump mentioned, or someone in his administration here in the last few days, is we really don't want to kill the Ayatollah because we want him to become the fall guy for all the damage that's being done in Iran and whatnot. Because as long as he's alive, they can point to him and say, you're the guy that caused all this misery in Iran and whatnot. So he would be better off to be left as a figurehead, because I think his power is being decimated now that all of this has happened. I don't think he has near the control. Yeah, he's got the troops and they've got the guns, but I think now they've been decimated so much, and he knows that the world is going to be watching every move that goes on, but we do not want to get involved in nation building like we did in Afghanistan for 20 years.
I think the idea is to move the Ayatollah back into the religious realm. Kind of, I guess it would kind of equate him to the Pope of the Muslims, and move him out of the governmental area and say, "Look, we're going to have a secular, instead of a theocracy. We're going to have I'm not sure what kind of government they would have, but certainly something that would be less less invasive than the theocracy, and so that the Ayatollah could continue as the religious leader, and not the governmental leader."
And I think that's correct. That would be the kind of the right thing to do. He'll no longer be a figurehead. You're right. If they want to make him the chief in charge of the Islamic Muslim religion factor, then that's fine. I think he's like 84, 85 years old. So, he's not got that many days left on this earth. Okay. So it's not like he's going to be around forever, but yeah, we need to, and for Israel's sake and the rest of the Middle, and I think all the other Mideast countries are rooting for the fact that they do away with the nuclear facility, because that's a threat to all of the Muslim countries in that part of the world, including Israel and so on. So they've got to decimate that, get rid of that threat. And then I think the rest of the countries can deal with Iran minus the nuclear facilities.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that, and we were talking about this in church, and also some of my Christian friends have posted about Revelation, and after the flood, the Lord came to Noah and said, "I'm not going to flood the earth anymore with water. Next time it's going to be the fire." Well, many people believe that that may be a nuclear explosion, and
Mm-hmm.
a nuclear explosion in Israel would affect all of the Arab world for quite some long time, and I don't think anybody wants to see that. So that
No.
if they can keep that from happening, they're all about that. The other thing that Tom Trento alluded to was that there are two factions of Islam. One is the Shiites and one is the Sunnis. And I may have this backwards, but when Muhammad died, there was this big argument as to who should be his successor. And the Shiites said, oh, it should be his son. Naturally, his son would be the successor. But the Sunnis said, no, 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 wait a minute. He had like this board of directors. He had this board of directors that was overseeing what he was doing. And so it should be one of them that should take over. And that's where the fissure came. And he believes that there could easily, if something was to happen to the Ayatollah, there could be a more or less a civil war, because some of the countries, apparently, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, um, Yemen, some of them are Shiites, but some of the other countries like Iraq, I should say, and some of these others are Sunnis, and they would be fighting each other in this huge apocalyptic war if something happens. And that's something else that Donald Trump, as somebody who views the world stage, doesn't want to see happen. He wants to keep things on an even keel. So I think that the Ayatollah won't be he won't be assassinated by the Israelis or anybody else trying to keep peace in the West. I can't say what happens in the Arab world there, but it looks like he's trying to keep a lid on it. And he's given him 2 weeks, so I'm not sure. There must be some back channel communications going on there to try to get things settled. We haven't seen. You mentioned gas prices up there in Pennsylvania were 365. Here they did the normal 2 week jump to 3 and 15, and now are slowly coming back down again. It's become like a normal cycle. Well, you've seen it where it's 315, 319, then it goes to 315, then it goes to 312. Currently, as we're doing this audio, it's 309. But I figure in the next few days it'll dump back down to 299 where it was before. It got down as low as 281 here for a little while. So I don't. We haven't seen any direct big impact from what's happened in Iran at the gas pumps here.
Well, that's it. I mean, when the thing I wanted to check this morning and didn't get to it yet, but and that is how far along have we come with our oil refining and drilling in that in this country since Trump took office? Because we should be at a point, if not right now, but shortly, where we're self-sufficient and we could care less about how much oil Iran produces, because I would hope and think that we would not be purchasing any oil from anybody like Iran, that's for sure. Now, I know Joe Biden and them did that, but no, we do not want to do that. We want to use our own U.S. oil because we have, Lord knows we have enough of it. We just have to get it out of the ground and refine it and whatnot. So I think that's the big issue.
And another thing that I just saw this morning, and I'm just starting to unpack this a little bit, but apparently the Justice Department has found an oil refinery in the United States that was using stolen oil out of Mexico, refining it and kicking back money to the cartels. They said it was an ingenious method that had been kind of overlooked by the previous administration, But the Trump administration is now beginning, as we know, to follow the dollars. And and I don't have the name of it right in front of me here, but this refinery had been they'd been smuggling it across the border, labeled as waste, and they brought the oil into this refinery, who then turned it into gasoline and kicked the profits back to the cartels. So there are
Wow.
some other things happening in the oil and energy industry here that may or may not affect the prices as we go along.
Yeah, that I certainly would like to see that thing, shut down and bottled up for sure. Absolutely. I mean, we need to just get on to the business of drilling for oil, refining it into gasoline, and get the price down and keep the price down, stabilize it, and get it coming down time after time. Because like I keep telling people, when Trump left office the first time in Sebring, I believe gas was like at $1.68 a gallon when he left office the first time. So there's no reason why we can't get it back down to that kind of a ballpark again. Certainly under $2 a gallon.
Yeah, and Trump has been really tried to make sure that things are. That is his, I think, his a cornerstone for reducing inflation, because as gas prices come down, and we should reasonably expect, as the fuel prices come down, the cost of groceries should stabilize or actually go down, because it's going to cost less to deliver those groceries. Although what I'm hearing from your analyses of the crops in the Great Midwest, there may be a shortage there, because they're not going to be able to grow the crops to make into the groceries.
Yeah, I drove by a large cornfield this morning because I took the back road coming back from Ohio, and the corn that I saw was maybe 2 inches high. That's all. And but again, it's just they've had so much rain. Either the farmers had to delay or replant a second crop, hoping that it was going to grow, but hoping also that we didn't continue to get inundated with so much rain. But the rain has hit them so hard every place I've been that the corn and soybean, which are the two big crops in this part of the country, are corn and soybeans. And neither one of them have had much of an opportunity to get much growth factor just because of the constant rain that they've had and lack of sunshine. But now, hopefully, it looks like the prediction over the next week or so is they're supposed to start getting higher temperatures on a regular basis. And hopefully, that comes with sunshine and not so much rain. And let the crops grow. Otherwise, the farmers up here are going to be decimated this year.
Well, and the other thing is, have you heard about this heat wave that's supposed to hit the United States beginning next week? There's going to say that they're talking about how we may have the highest temperatures in almost 100 years. I mean, I know that there were 32 states that set their all-time June monthly high temperature rates back in 1960, but some go back to the 30s. And up in Ohio, I think in 1934 their high was 108 degrees. Over there in Pennsylvania, it was 107. That was set back in 1933, and it's been about 20 years since the last big heat wave that hit not only the United States, but it went out through all the world. I remember it was a very, very hot summer in France, and they said that it affected the Beaujolais grape crop, and they had the best Beaujolais grapes that they'd ever had, because it had gotten so hot. But have you heard anything about the big heat wave that's supposed to hit the Midwest next week?
I haven't heard it, but in looking at if you will, long-term forecast for this part of the country, it does look like they're going to get some days in the 90-degree range next week. Yes, and so on. But that'll be something that I don't think they've had. If they've had it up here, it's been maybe very infrequent and maybe a day or two. But mostly the temperatures up here seems to have been in the 50s and 60s and 70s, because I know my daughter said she was running the furnace here up within about a week ago. Okay.
Really?
Because it's been well, some nights up here it got down close to the 40s. So, that's kind of cold and whatnot. I mean, up here, I'll tell you what I have found out. I think living in Florida for 19 years now, when it gets below 70 degrees, I start to get cold. Okay. I mean, I really start. You sit out there at the racetrack. I mean, I know last week when I was sitting up in Ohio, and it was a very kind of a windy night, but I mean, the temperature got down to like, the mid 60s, and I was cold. All right. I'll make no bones about it. But the thing of it is, I saw the natives up there. Like I said the other day, they put on one sweatshirt, two sweatshirts, they wrapped up in a blanket. So I wasn't the only one that was cold.
Yeah, and I will tell you that we've talked a little bit about this. Hurricane season has already started,
Yes.
and we've urged people to begin to get stocked up for the hurricane season in case something happens. And as we've said, if no hurricane comes to Florida, we can always eat it during the holidays. But what we're seeing, and I'm hoping that for the duration while you're up there doing doing your racing circuit thing, take a look at the agriculture, talk to some of the farmers, and see if we should get stocked up now because market prices may go up if there's more demand than there is supply.
Well, certainly we know that corn, and to some degree soybeans, corn especially, and I know a lot of it, what they grow is field corn, but also a lot of it is, corn for eating, corn consumption, the market, and so on. So yeah, that and soybeans is a product that is normally used in some food additives and some other food, if you will, and so on. But they're the two big crops up here, and like I said before, they've really, really struggled to get a foothold. There's a local farmer around the corner from my daughter's down here, and his field, nothing in his field is much more than a couple of inches high. And I know that by this time, he probably had things well along the growth pattern and whatnot. So they've really been hurt hard by all of this rain, constant rain, and cooler temperatures, because the cooler temperature is not conducive for growing things either. So they had to get the temperature with some sunshine. Good old Mother Nature, we need that in order for the crops to grow.
Well, John, I want you to keep track of what's happening in the agricultural world, and so we can report back. And also, we're going to keep our eyes on what's happening in Iran and the fuel prices. I think that we're living in a very interesting time, and we want to keep the people informed on what to look for and what to do. And I really appreciate your keeping up on these kinds of things for us.
Well, that's all right. I always have been an observer when I travel. And I really like to take when I've come up here, I've always liked to try and take the back roads and just see what's going on in the countryside, not necessarily the inner city. I could, not much interest there, but what goes on in the countryside, how are people getting along? And certainly Ohio, Pennsylvania, a big part of it is agriculture. And, agriculture is the big thing. You've got to have agriculture. You've got to have food producers and whatnot. We're the food basket of the world, pretty much. We're a big part of it, and so on. So we need our farmers. Like I keep saying, without farmers, we don't eat.
And John, I used to when I did traveling up north, we would always stop at Cracker Barrels, and I did what I called headline roulette because it was not so much anymore, but traditionally, right outside the front door, the Cracker Barrel was a newspaper rack with a local paper, and I would
Hmm.
always stop and just kind of scan the headlines to see what was making headlines here, and whatever little town it was. And it was interesting because somebody was in trouble. Might be the school board, might be the county commission, might be the city council, might be a constitutional. But there was always some big issue going on. And so, do me a favor when you stop at some of the big spots where you uh, get gasoline or whatever. Do a little headline roulette for us, or listen to some local newscasts and uh, see what the scoop is up there in terms of the agricultural, because they rely on those for taxes just like we used to rely on citrus down here. So it'd be very interesting for me to hear from you what you find out there.
Right. Yeah. Well, like I say, I can see a lot of it from observing as I drive along and just notice the crops. I'm not a farmer, but I recognize when things are only about an inch or two high at this point in the year, that's not a good sign. Because the old saying, I mentioned it the other day, corn knee high by the 4th of July. and they're a long ways away from being knee high. And they've only got 4th of July is only a couple more weeks away. So they really need a little bit less rain for sure, and some good old sunshine and warmer temperatures. And then I think the crops will really start to take off. But it's going to be way late in the season, I think, before they're able to get the crops to the point where they can harvest them and sell them on the open market, because they've got a lot of growth yet to go.
John Larsen on assignment in Pennsylvania. Don't go away, John. Hold on here a second. You've been listening to the Barry Foster Show from the Ridge Flora Studios in beautiful Avon Park, the city of charm. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, please put them in the comments below, and please subscribe as we begin our trek to 1,000 new subscribers. Okay, in search of truth, justice, and the American way with John Larsen. This is Barry Foster, and we'll see you next time.